Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to do a full engine service on this K13 Micra. It's a 1.23 cylinder, not the supercharged version, so pretty much the one that most people will have. So yeah, let's get to it. We're going to change the air filter in the Micra, and yeah, you're doing it right. so it is just those clips, and then this whole section will lift out. You can just turn it round, and then that side pulls out. Definitely needs changing that, and then it goes in other way, that way, and then these little legs basically clip into these cutouts here, so you just want to slide that down into those cutouts like that, and then it should just clip up, and it is, yeah, as simple as that. So we're going to remove this whole intake manifold. So you can see here that the spark plugs are sat on the top. You can see number 2 and number 3, but you can't actually get to number 1 because it's under this intake manifold. So this whole intake manifold has to come off, which is a terrible design, but yeah, it is what it is. So you want to get some pliers, undo all the attachments to your airbox. So disconnect that breather. Then you want to disconnect your wire to your airflow meter. And then just round the back, there is some pipes just hooked to the airbox. And then you want a 10mm ratchet and extension. And this bolt here wants to come out. And then this one down here. Once you've got those 2 bolts out, you just want to remove the pipe going to your throttle body, which is just this Jubilee clip here. And then once that is off, you should be able to lift out your entire airbox. So this pipe here just wants to hook off there. It is just pushed on. And once you've got that unhooked, you want to just push the airbox that way and get it off the throttle body, and then there's another one of those like rubber push clips underneath the airbox, so then you can just pull it up and then the whole thing should just lift out like that. So next up, we want to remove this whole intake manifold as one piece. So you need to disconnect the wires going to the throttle body. There's one there, and then just one around the back there, and then if you get your pliers, you should be able to squeeze this clip together and just push that out of there like that. And then you've got this pipe too, that should just pull off, and then you've got your pipe going to your brake master cylinder that needs to come off. That end probably be fairly tight, so just give it a wiggle around just to break the seal. Once you've got those off, you've got 2 options. You can either remove these 2 coolant pipes, but you are going to leak coolant everywhere, or you can remove the throttle body from the rest of the intake manifold, which is definitely the easier option. So you've just got 4 bolts around the throttle body. I think they're 8mm. So if you take all 4 of them out, we should be able to just pull that throttle body away and leave the coolant pipes connected, so that we don't have to disconnect the coolant pipes. So once you've removed those 4 bolts, that whole thing should lift away. With the coolant pipes attached, you can just move it to one side so it's out of your way. And then you want to remove this 10mm bolt here and this 10mm bolt here. So once you've got this bolt and this bolt out of the manifold, there are just 4 bolts holding the manifold to the actual head of the car. So you want to remove the dipstick and just put it out of the way for now. And then you have 1 bolt here, 1 bolt down there, and then there will be one through here that you can see if you kind of put your head down the back of the manifold and have a look. But yeah, the one in that recess, one in that recess, and then one either side at the bottom. So I think the best way to do this is probably going to be using a wobbly ended adapter with a socket on it and a long extension, and then you can just get that down there like that, and it's not too difficult to get to once you've got the adapter on. So my mistake, there is one bolt here, one in that recess. There is not one in that recess. There's one just below it, and then the last bolt is here, just down the side. So now all 4 bolts are out of that manifold. The whole manifold should just lift up out of your way, and then that just opens up the entire top end of the engine, and then you've got your 3 coil packs here, and then your spark plugs are underneath those. So all we need to do is unplug the coil packs. So once you've got all the coil packs unplugged, there's just a 10mm bolt holding each one of these coil packs in, and they just want to be removed. And then once the bolt's out of the coil pack should just lift out. There's a rubber seal on it, so it might be a little bit tight, but if you just give it a tiny shake around and then just pull at the same time, it should come off. And then down those holes are your spark plugs. So the spark plugs are a really odd size. It's actually a 14mm deep socket to get the spark plugs out. They're so thin and narrow. I don't know whether you can see that, but yeah, 14mm socket. So let's get those out. So because I don't have a 14mm spark plug socket, it doesn't have the rubber insert in that pulls the plug out, so I'm having to use some long nose pliers just to pull the plug out from down there. So yeah, uses some long nose pliers to pull it out. Also, if you've got like a retractable magnet on a stick, that works well as well. So once they're out, just carefully drop the new plug in with the long nose pliers, just so that you don't bend the electrode at the end, and then start that off by hand and get it as tight as we can by hand. So, and then once it's in, just give it a little nip with the ratchet, and then just repeat the same process for the other 2. So now that the plugs are in nice and tight, you just want to drop your coil packs back in like that, and just give them a nip up like that. So once they're back in and nice and tight, you just want to make sure you plug all your coil packs back in. The wires come out like basically right next to the coil pack, so you shouldn't have to like stretch them to the next coil pack. They come out right next to the coil pack that they're meant to go to, so you can't really get them the wrong way around. So now that they're all back in, we can chuck everything back together, and everything basically just goes back together in reverse order. So let's chuck it all back together, and then we can get to changing the oil. So first you want to get the car jacked up. So I have got it jacked up and have 2 axle stands under the subframe just supporting it, and then you want a 14mm spanner or socket, and then this, if you get under the car, this plug here is your drain plug. So you just want to crack that off, and then get a tray of some sort to drain your oil into. Should be about 5 litres ish in the car, so yeah, just make sure you've got a tub big enough to catch all of the oil. But yeah, that is the plug out, so then just let it drain out and give that like 5-10 minutes to drain out, and then you can chuck the plug back in, and then we can get the oil filter out. So while the oil's draining out, we can take the oil filter off. So I have just got some big plumber's grips to get it off. You can use an oil filter strap or whatever tools you've got. I just find these the quickest and easiest to use. So if you just crack it off with your pliers, and then make sure your tray's in the right place so it doesn't go all over the floor, and then just wind your oil filter off. And that is the filter off. I'm going to give it 10 minutes just to drain all the oil out, and then we'll stick the new filter in and stick the plug back in, and we'll fill it back up with oil again. So now that I've left it draining for a little bit, it's time to put the new oil filter on. So I'm just going to get a dab of oil on my finger, just run it round the seal, and then that just wants winding back up there. Like that. It just wants to be as tight as you can get it with your hands. And then grab your sump plug, and that can go back in too. Just make sure your copper washer's still on there if you're not putting a new one on. So yeah, just get that on nice and tight. Normally I would put a copper washer on there, but I've run out of the ones in the right size. But the washer was changed last year, so it should be all right. But yeah, that is the oil drained. Now it's time to top it back up. Once you've got your oil filter and drain plug back in the car, then you want to drop the car back on the ground so that it's nice and level. Try and get it on like a flat surface, and then we're going to top the oil up. So it needs 5W30 oil in the UK. It might be different depending where you are in the world, but yeah, just double check what you need. But in the UK it is 5W30, and it takes 3.4 litres of oil. So your oil cap is here just next to your intake manifold. So once you've got the oil in, you want to put your oil cap back on, and then Sarah is just going to run the car. So fire the car up, let it run for 20 seconds or so, and just make sure you've got no oil leaks, which looks all right. Basically what it'll do when you run the engine, it'll fill the oil filter back up with oil, so your oil level will go down slightly. So just double check it again and make sure it's all right. You can see there, I had it on the mark before and it's gone down a little bit, so we just need to put a little bit more oil in, and then we should be all good. So that is how to service a K13 1.2 Micra with its. So this is not the Dig S model, it is the model with no supercharger, just the naturally aspirated one. And yeah, dead easy to service. The intake manifold actually looks a lot harder to get off than it actually is. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes max. It doesn't have a fuel filter that's serviceable. The fuel filter is in the tank with the fuel pump. After like 2010, a lot of cheap cars just had like a non-serviceable fuel filter in them. I don't know why they do it. It's a terrible idea. But basically, you change them when they block up and go wrong. And yeah. It's a stupid idea. Don't ask me why they do it, but they do. So that's how to service K13 Micra. If you found it helpful, make sure you leave a like, and don't forget to share it with anybody else that might want to service a K13 Micra. But I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.